Crystal clear HD stereo. Today's pregame show is brought to you by Volleman's Dairy, the official milk of the Dallas Cowboys. Texaco. Texaco with Techron delivers unbeatable gas mileage. Texaco with Techron, driving performance. Arrow Exterminators, official pest control provider of the Dallas Cowboys. Buffalo Wild Wings. Blockchain.com. Make your crypto play today. And by DallasCowboys.com. Keep track of the boys with daily podcasts and up-to-the-minute blogging at DallasCowboys.com. Now, here's Eric Chiofalo and Bryan Broaddus.
Let's do this thing on a Cowboy game day, ladies and gentlemen. 3 hours to kickoff. That's sweet. We never get a 9 a.m., 3 hours to kickoff opportunity. At least it seems like never.
Yeah.
But here we are, ladies and gentlemen. Uptown Charlotte is where the Cowboys will be residing. It looks like, from what I've seen, Derek Eagleton and company with DallasCowboys.com on the buses entering the stadium grounds and seeing a lot of Cowboy tents. A lot of people wondering, wait, are we in Arlington right now? We got Frank Reich in practice for the Panthers this week, practicing the silent counts because it might just be a Cowboy contingent takeover there at Bank of America Stadium.
I've been to Charlotte a couple of different times with this football team, and I remember one time with Cam Newton playing like it was a final drive of the game. It's early in Cam Newton's career, final drive, and the crowd was so loud that they were having trouble moving the ball.
Oh no, because the Cowboys fans.
Because the Cowboy fans were totally into it. And it's nice to see all the tents up. Maybe the smartest thing that Frank Reich's done this week was worry about silent count for his football team.
Not taking the play calling back.
That's never a good situation when you have it, you give it up, and then you take it back.
So have you seen that before? I was curious. Because you have Frank Reich, head coach of the Panthers.
I was trying to think that.
He's the play caller, and then about 3 or 4 weeks ago, he relinquishes the play calling duties over to Thomas Brown, who's a young, up-and-coming offensive mind from the McVay system in Los Angeles. And then, boom, you wake up now in the middle of this week, and it's like, nah, I'm going to go ahead and get those back.
Yeah, it's it is very unusual, and probably what happened, you have a really involved owner there in Carolina.
Oh, Tepper?
Yeah. And I guarantee you there was some whispers about we don't need to be messing with this right now. We don't need to be messing with our rookie quarterback. We need the whole idea was when we drafted this kid, Frank, you were going to call plays.
Consistency, continuity.
Exactly.
Even though I like the idea of Tepper running down, angry in the first few weeks of the season.
Oh, yeah.
Frank, give up the play calling duties. And then he comes down the stairs 3 weeks later and he's like, you know what? I take it back. You take the play calling duties back, Frank.
I remember my own experience of work with Mike Holmgren in Green Bay, and there would be times where Mike would, like during the game, he would give the play calling to Andy Reid. He'd say, Andy, he goes, I'm in a rut right now. I need you to call some plays.
Ooh, that's cool.
And then Andy would work a series or two, and then Mike would find the rhythm of the game, and then he would get back to play calling. I've seen it done during a game.
Now, were those things, obviously you were inside, so you knew these things. Are those things that the media knew? Or did they keep that close to the vest and this is years later, now you share?
Yeah, this is years later situation. There would be, but Mike was very open to, if he got into a rut, that he would let Andy call plays.
Andy's a pretty trustworthy guy to have
Andy
on that
or
staff.
John Gruden, yeah, those two guys were pretty trustworthy for Mike. Steve Mariucci, but I don't think he ever let Mooch call plays. He would go to Andy.
Yeah, I don't blame him.
And let Andy handle it. But yeah, I think it's very unusual. But I do believe this is going back because of the rookie quarterback. I think that's why they went back. He needs continuity. He needs stability. You know, I can understand stepping back if you're Frank Reich and kind of looking and seeing how the game's going. But if it's not going, if you don't see your quarterback developing or you don't see improvement with your quarterback, then you have to look at it and say, okay, I haven't helped him the first 4 or 5 games.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I can help him the last part of it. So you need that. It's not about the evaluation because he is your quarterback. It's about, can you find some things that he can work on and get better during the season that they can improve on for 2024.
877-881-1053, the number to text here. Cowboy predictions, what's the confidence meter, and what's on the menu?
What's on the menu, as always. That's one of my favorite little things we do, by the way.
No question. I look forward to it. Mike and Caddo Mills is always getting it done. Who can compete with Mike and Caddo Mills, who last week was doing a mesquite smoked chicken nacho situation that seemed pretty dang impressive. Cowboys Nation, come out early to the Miller Lite House, the pregame gathering destination on the West Plaza of the stadium. Miller Lite is the only beer of the Cowboys, and we invite all Cowboys fans to join us for a great tailgate event. Sample some awesome seltzer brands as well, like Vizzy Hard Seltzer, the official hard seltzer of the Dallas Cowboys. Looking forward to being at AT&T Stadium on Thursday. A little Thanksgiving football. That's going to be fantastic. But in the meantime, let's focus on these Panthers. You talk about the offense. You talk about the rookie, number 1 overall pick out of Alabama, Bryce Young, a bit undersized, and he has been a bit underwhelming to start his career. What have you seen from him, and how much help is he actually getting?
Well, I'll tell you what, he has a veteran offense around him. When you look at the wide receivers with DJ Chark and then also with Adam Thielen, he's got a veteran tight end with Hayden Hurst, who's not going to play today due with the concussion. Boy, I was so surprised that they hadn't used Hayden Hurst more, because I saw Hayden Hurst help Joe Burrow at Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. You know, I saw Joe Burrow just thrive with Chase and others. I mean, he has some receivers, don't get me wrong. But this Hayden Hurst is really just a really good player. Everywhere he's been, he's kind of, been able to elevate the game of others around him, the quarterbacks around him. But he's out of the game with a concussion today. The Panthers are really kind of beat up. Their offensive line for a veteran group has been, there's some things in turmoil with them right now. They're just not as good as they need to be. I mean, they've had some veteran players, and maybe it's about them having to adjust, much like the Cowboys were having to adjust in the first, 6-7 games of the season, but Taylor Moton has not been as good as he needs to be at right tackle. They've struggled a little bit there. Bradley Bozeman, the center, there's talk about him maybe playing some guard today. They're kind of banged up inside on their offensive line. So we might see some shuffling around there, but it's a veteran group. They give up a lot of pressure. The real problem, though, is the quarterback tends to hold the ball on them, and he's not very comfortable. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks, and when you look at him coming out of Alabama, that the accuracy was something really big. His ability to move, to buy a second or third chance, to navigate the pocket, and then to make the throw. He was super accurate, and it just hasn't been the case. He's struggling right now with keeping his eyes down the field. He's not been able to be accurate throwing the football. Even when he's throwing on the move, he hasn't been accurate. So there's a lot of traits that he was able to show, the reason why he was the first overall pick. Now you're starting to not see those traits. And that's where you look down at Houston and what Stroud has done, those traits that you saw when he was lighting up Georgia in a playoff game while he was at Ohio State. You see those traits, and there's part of his game today. Whereas Young, it's been a real struggle for him. Him being NFL ready or college ready to NFL ready, he hasn't made that jump like Stroud has. And Stroud clearly is ahead of him on that. And, Stroud has done a really nice job too with the guys, several former Cowboys, helping him there with Schultz, the tight end. We all know that. And Noah Brown. And, with Dell also, Tank Dell playing very well for him. So yeah, they've got some skill guys down there and Houston, they're taking advantage of that. Whereas in Carolina, it's been a little bit of a struggle because the quarterback just isn't as comfortable playing in this game right now.
Yeah, and it's always more difficult when you're the number one overall pick, you're off to a slow start, but the other quarterback that was drafted behind you is absolutely rocking and rolling right now in Houston when nobody had expectations that he or that team would be doing that.
Yeah, what's really strange is you talk to people in Houston and they would probably deny it, but if they had the first overall pick, they would have taken Bryce Young.
Yes. Hey, dude, you got to get a little lucky. You got to get a little lucky.
Sometimes the football draft gods smile on you. Some days, hey, having Patrick Surtain or having J.C. Horn would have been great for the Dallas Cowboys, but all of a sudden you end up with Micah Parsons in your lap.
Hello.
Sometimes the draft guards smile on you that way.
Sometimes you want Paxton Lynch or Connor Cook, and you get a Dak.
Sometimes it happens to you that way. It's amazing. It really, really is.
940 says this game's outdoors on grass, so I think it'll be closer than most. 24-13 Cowboys. What about this?
Do we play on grass there in Carolina?
They're playing on grass. Yeah, playing on grass.
For some reason, it looks like it's like their grass doesn't tear up like other teams' grass does.
It's a good-looking grass. It's a good-looking grass. I think it has something to do with the idea of just being, hey, you're in Charlotte. It's kind of a sweet spot of weather. Not too hot, not too dry, not too cold.
I've seen some college games played there late in the year, and the grass looks just god awful. And so I was curious watching the tape if they in fact switched that thing to turf, that special turf.
Well, I know they have these new fields now where they kind of do
the blend.
It's a mix of the turf and the grass. So maybe there's something there, but yeah, it is one of the nicer grass fields in all of football.
It's beautiful. And that's the thing that I was kind of, when I was, like I said, I was watching the tape and I'm like, did they flip this to that artificial field?
Maybe we'll get to the bottom of that.
I'm looking because for some reason, man, the field is way too pretty for that.
Why don't we text our the best sideline reporter in the business, Christy Scales?
Christy Scales will tell us.
See if she could do some recon for us here.
Absolutely,
because she's going to be down on that field, and the 817's alleging that they took the turf or they took the grass out and it's turf now.
That's what I thought.
Interesting. All right. Well, then maybe you don't have to worry about it. 940 worried about the outdoors and the grass. It is going to be outdoors, but it should be beautiful there today.
It is. We're like 2 or 3 minutes on the grass talk here, but I see it. I've seen that field before where it's looked just god awful. Where and I'm thinking, man, this thing looks pristine for late November. With the play. 'Cause sometimes they have college games there. So we'll see.
Yeah, it looks different.
I might just text the equipment guy right now in Dallas and ask him what we're playing on today.
Boom. Yeah, there you go.
How about if I do that?
Yeah.
Would that help you?
I like that idea.
All right.
That's what you get here on the official pregame show of America's team. We got sources up in here thanks to the Super Bowl champion, former Cowboys scout, Bryan Broaddus, hanging out with us on the official pregame show. Now, with the Panthers, obviously offensively, it's funny you mentioned the offensive line and things look weird, and they bring in Miles Sanders to be their main back, but they've sort of sat him down a little bit because he hasn't been producing the way that they wanted him to. And I was reading up on the Panthers, and in The Athletic, they have a story about just the changing of the guard from Frank Reich to Thomas Brown back to Frank Reich, the play calling duties, just the disaster that is the Panthers right now. And one of the things he notes is the Panthers are using the Rams wide zone as part of their run package, which is Thomas Brown coming from McVay and the Rams to be on this staff here with Frank Reich and company. But it's with an offensive line that showed at the end of last season that it is much more effective blocking downhill.
Yeah.
So it's sort of square peg round holing this thing. You're Frank Reich. You have your system for many, many years that's got you to where you are today, but you bring in the young guy Thomas Brown to mix in some of the new age ways of doing the Sean McVay stuff, but it doesn't really work with your personnel. So the entire offense has just been wonky. Should be a really, really good opportunity today for the Cowboys defensively and offensively. And at the line of scrimmage, being able to run the football, stop the run. I know that's some talking points that we need to get into, but it is a Cowboy game day here on the official pregame show of the Dallas Cowboys. Approaching kickoff, under 3 hours now, under 3 hours to kick off. Cowboys, Panthers, what's on the menu? And I got a Cowboy question. Of the things we saw last week, the developments we saw last week, Cook's getting going, Dowdle getting going a little bit. Hello, Michael Gallup making some plays, contested balls. Which of those developments is the biggest moving forward for this Cowboys football team? And we'll get to the player profile as well with Michael Gallup. All coming up next right here on The Fan.
Experience the most. 5153 or visit pollock.com today.
Under 3 hours to kick off here on your home of the Cowboys. If you're looking for a place to watch the game today, Old 75 Beer Garden in Richardson. Hang out with 105.3 The Fan, Corey Majors at the KNC Masterpiece. Fantastic beers, awesome food, and just a great environment to take in a Cowboy game. So, Old 75 Beer Garden, that is the official watch party of 105.3 The Fan and your Dallas Cowboys. Hang out with Corey Majors in Richardson, Old 75, off 75. Now, we were just discussing, Broaddus, the idea of the field conditions there in Carolina. It's an outdoor road game, so you're like, okay, high alert here with the Cowboys. The comforts of AT&T Stadium, the dome, the turf, they're a much better and faster team, it feels like at least. And so some texters concerned about, hey, natural grass outside. Not the case. Thank you to Dylan and a couple of other Tolos there that informed us and sent an article back in August of 2021.
Yeah, I thought so.
The Panthers switched from the from the natural grass to the artificial turf. So the Cowboys will feel right at home running around on that fast surface. But it will be an outdoor game. Beautiful day, I believe, in Uptown Charlotte, so shouldn't be a huge issue. But I know that's one of the things that you've talked about in lead up to this game. Hey, I want to see this Cowboys offense in particular. I want to see the same fireworks show as I see at AT&T Stadium. I want to see it in somebody else's house.
No, absolutely. And, this when you talk about the Cowboys have been incredible at 12 straight wins on the at home, right? And now you're dealing with, you want to find a way to take this offense. Offense, as you mentioned, is just so explosive. The big plays, the chunk plays. Dak Prescott, they create turnovers out there with their defense when they get home. Crowd noise has been outstanding, and they'll get crowd noise today. We talked about that. Cowboy fans will show up at Bank of America Stadium. They'll be there. They'll be ready to go. But we'll see if the offense can get going. If they can just, when you watch them play at home, it's just play after play after play. They get the ball to start games, and at times have been just outstanding, getting off and getting a big lead, and then the defense chokes the opponent's offense. You get the ball back, and you get another score. So, and I think maybe some of the road woes, if you want to say, might be a little bit of the opponents you play. At home, this year they haven't played anybody particularly great. Would you say?
Oh no, for sure. The opponents.
The Jets. If the Jets had Aaron Rodgers, that might be a different story. But they've faced some teams defensively that have struggled. They played some teams that have struggled at quarterback. But you play your schedule. I'm not making excuses. I mean, you go play your schedule, and it just seems like, though, that their road games have been a little bit more daunting with when you have to go to San Francisco. And then, of course, at Philadelphia. You had a chance to beat Philadelphia on the road. That could have changed a lot of your attitude about what you think about this football team on the road if you find a way to go out there and win in Philadelphia. Boy, that would have been huge, but didn't come out that way.
Man, you talk about the Cowboys getting off to fast starts and then suffocating the opposition. It seems like that's been the case for the Panthers as well, where teams get out on them early and then they suffocate them the rest of the way.
No, you're absolutely right. And by the way, the equipment man texted me back, said turf.
Yeah.
So it's a little late to the game.
It's all right. It's all right. We appreciate it.
They need to get their act together over there while they're trying to get their team dressed and ready to play.
we gotta double source it.
We got a pregame show we got to do here. We don't have time for you to get your get old Zach Martin padded up and ready to beat Carolina, right?
Yeah, come on, man. Put the tape down.
Yeah.
Zach Martin and his ankles can hang on for a second. The pregame show needs some information.
We need information. And next time I text you, I want some seriously quick information. I don't want you to wait 2 or 3 minutes after the fact.
Well, why don't you go ahead and give me some quick information here, because I got a question for you. What do you believe to be the biggest development for the Cowboys from last week's win versus the Giants? You had Brandon Cooks finally getting going in a huge way. You had Rico Dowdle kind of jumping off the screen a little bit. Everybody going, wait, should Dowdle be starting? Should Dowdle be getting the bulk of the carries here? Or was it Michael Gallup finally returning to form on a handful of plays, the contested balls, scoring the touchdown? Which of those do you think, in terms of moving forward for this team, is the bigger development?
I feel like I know everybody loves the fact that Cooks showed up. But, man, when you look, because you're going to say, well, there's going to be times where they're going to take CeeDee Lamb out of these games. And what did we do last week on our show on 105.3 The Fan, the G-Bag Nation? We did a little study and found out that if you single cover or double cover CeeDee Lamb, he's still going to make plays.
Mm-hmm.
So you're thinking, well, there's teams are going to take Lamb out of the game, and then Cooks has to be ready. But it's that that might not be the case. Lamb's going to do it regardless. It seems like. To me, I think it's the Rico Dowdle emergence, and to the point where I would consider even starting him in these games. I think there has to be a level of physicality that you play with to open these games. I think if you could find a way to establish some line dominance, and even when things aren't blocked perfectly, I'm finding now that Dowdle has the ability to make somebody miss. And that used to be Tony Pollard. Tony Pollard used to be, I make the first guy miss and we'd get 5 yards out of it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, last year's Pollard was an absolute animal.
A yard and a half better animal when it came to him and Zeke running the football.
Yeah, I mean, his rush yards over expectation were tops in the league pretty much all season long last year.
So I would say getting Dowdle going, and maybe the possibility of this being, and I'm not saying it has to be a 50-50 split or something like that. I would just like to see more opportunities for Dowdle. And it doesn't have to be. Okay, in the third series of the game, here comes Dowdle. No, mix them in together.
Right.
Don't have a rhyme or reason why you're doing things. Don't make it a Dowdle's running this play, Pollard's going to be in for this play. Okay, we got 2 plays with Dowdle. That's what I'd like to see. I'd like to see more of a mix of the two playing instead of just one, getting maybe 2 series and then the other one comes in. Just try and mix it. But I would not be looking at it as with Dowdle. I need him playing off the jump. I really, really do. I would, I don't like it when they bring him in a little bit later. Just let him start a game. Let him start. And then you get some physicality running the football, and you get some confidence with your offensive line, and maybe you could find 2 or 3 plays with him running the ball that the Panthers or opponents aren't going to be able to defend that day. And you just kind of keep going back to those plays. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I grew up in an era where the Washington at the time Redskins ran what we call counter tray, and they ran it out of different formations, but it was the same play, pulling, and then backs behind, but nobody could stop the play.
The Hogs.
Yeah, just did it out of different formations, did it out of different looks, but they found plays in the running game that people couldn't stop. And that's kind of what I think Dallas is going to need to figure out. They're going to need to, once the calendar turns to December, they're going to need to figure out some running plays that they can hang their hat on, that people can't defend. And when you try and defend it, then maybe you adjust to something else. But there's some teams that run the ball with some really good effectiveness, and they do it just because they have 1 or 2 single plays they do it out of.
Yeah, finding your bread and butter, finding your footing offensively when it comes to running the ball is going to be big. Dak and the passing attack has really, really evolved since the bye week in a huge way, much more explosive and much more difficult for defenses to contain. But obviously you want to be able to lean on your rushing attack at times as you get into the later parts of the season and stuff. So
you just need the threat. I mean, if Dak continues to play at a high level, which I believe he will, and Lamb and Cooks, Ferguson, you get Hendershot back, not this week, but hopefully soon. You will find ways to throw the football. If you get the right tackle, starts playing with some consistency. He played really well. Steele played really well last week against the Giants. It'll be a challenge for him again this week, dealing with Burns. But I feel like though that they could always throw the ball. I feel like Dallas can always throw the ball. It's the can I get 4.5 4.7 a carry? Can I get near 5 a carry?
Well, they'll have a great opportunity today versus this Carolina run defense that is one of the worst in the league, and they've led the league in missed tackles defensively. I learned that on the Love of the Star podcast with you, Broaddus, and Bobby Belt this week. So going to be a great opportunity to keep that rushing attack getting tuned up a little bit. You started last week. Nice runs there with Pollard and certainly with Dowdle. And there is some injury questions with Dowdle coming in today. He was downgraded to questionable, feeling good that he'll at least suit up and get out there.
Yeah, I talked to some folks last night in Charlotte about him because I know he showed up on the injury report with an ankle. And the word I got was the plan is for him to play today.
Okay, beautiful.
So we'll see. You never know how things will shake out, but I know as of last night, the plan was for him to play.
682, is it possible that we maybe overvalued Pollard last season because he was just better than Zeke? No, I don't think so. I think we valued Pollard appropriately last season. He was one of the best running backs in the league from start to finish last year. And it started to slow down a little bit for the entire rushing attack as the season went on. But Pollard was a beast from start to finish. He gets hurt at the end of the season there in the final game, and I think that injury has taken its toll on him a little bit. So he's not the same player now that he was last year. Don't tell that to Jerry because he's not buying that. He's not buying what you're selling. He handed him $10+ million guaranteed on the franchise tag this year. So I don't know that you'll be able to get your wish granted, Broaddus, of seeing Dowdle starting because we know how the money works and the money can dictate some things. But I think they valued Pollard last year, or we did at least, perfectly. He was a beast. He's just not the same player this year. And off an injury, it's fair to understand that.
I think there's some also I think you make an excellent point with the injury part of it. I do feel like the offensive line coach change has affected how this team runs the football.
Yeah, he's not getting a ton of help from his offensive line, that's for sure. That's for sure.
There are times where this thing is not block clean. But I will say this, there are times it is block clean and he's not able to take advantage of that. Not seeing it the right way. And there's people that believe he's pressing. He's pressing because of the salary that you mentioned, the fact he's trying to get an extension, and all those things are playing into what's going on. I do really believe though that the change at offensive line coach has affected how they run block. That's one of my big things right now.
It's the official pregame show of America's Team, brought to you by Reliant and NRG Company. Today's player profile is Michael Gallup. He had a nice coming out party, a nice get-right game there for Michael Gallup last week, and he is today's player profile with Chris Arnold.
Michael Gallup, how's it going, man?
Going good. How you doing?
Have you ever played in Carolina before?
I have. It's actually my first NFL game.
Is that right? Let's go back. What happened in that game?
We actually lost.
Oh, man.
18-6.
It should be. You guys have been playing so well, and the way the Carolina Panthers, they're still in the NFL, but things have not been going that well for them. Is this one of these tricky games, or you guys should handle up on business?
Oh, yeah. We definitely been talking about it all week. It's definitely going to be a tricky game, but, we can't get caught up in that, and we just got to go play our game, and we'll be fine.
Can you talk about how the offense is rolling, especially your guy, Dak Prescott? It seems like everything is happening for him right now.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But he's always been that way. He practices that way every single day, comes into work like that every single day, and it shows. The whole offense, we roll off of him. So, it just goes down the line.
In that last game, everybody, as far as receivers are concerned, was getting involved. I mean, Brandon Cooks got some touches. You got the big touchdown. Can you talk about that touchdown? It was 41 yards?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, for sure.
That was out of your playbook.
Facts. We say it all the time, though. Whoever, pops it off, the ball's going to have to come back around eventually. Mm-hmm. And that's what we just wait on. So I was happy about it. It was a good little start up, but now we got to keep it going.
As far as keeping it going concerned, you guys have a stretch here where you're supposed to be playing some teams. Again, they are in the NFL, so they got talent, but they're not supposed to be of the same caliber of, say, a playoff team. Is that kind of tricky, or is that to your advantage where you can try to win this division, meet Philadelphia, and see how it plays out?
It's definitely always going to be tricky because, like you said, they're an NFL team too. But, we should handle our business. We should win those games that we're supposed to win. And when the hard games come, we're ready for those as well.
On a game day, especially on an afternoon game day, you have any special thing you have to do? You have to listen to some kind of music, or you want to lay down a little bit? Any superstitions?
Honestly, I don't really have any superstitions. I don't really have anything where I need to have to do it, before the game or anything like that. I do not eat that much. That's about it.
When you do eat, what will it be?
When I do eat, it'll probably be some chicken Alfredo.
That'll work. Michael Gallup, good luck this afternoon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael Gallup. Thank you, Chris Arnold. That is today's player profile on the official pregame show of America's Team. Let's go inside the star with our Cowboys insider, Bobby Belt, as we continue to get you set for Cowboys Panthers next right here on The Fan.
We've all got a wild side. Feed it with Jack Links. Now feed it with more Jack Links. Now use your wild side to smash through the door. Now ride your wild side down the stairs like a sled. Now run naked into the woods. Now challenge a bear to a fight. Now earn the bear's respect. Now fall in love with the bear and move to the woods and raise a family with the bear and become the bear king.
Might have caught a couple of people sleeping a little bit.
You
Noon
think?
game. Noon game. You're used to the usual 3:30 prime slot. Maybe a little Sunday night football, a little 7:20 action. All of a sudden, Sunday morning gets here a little bit quicker than you thought. But shout out to the 817 hitting a carnivore breakfast pizza. This sounds pretty special. And this is obviously a healthy gentleman who's making his crust from eggs and mozzarella cheese and doing some Greek yogurt things. But shout out to you, 817. Carnivore breakfast pizza. I'm seeing sausage or bacon, maybe a little chorizo on there. Yeah. That's a good situation.
I'd say it's a really good situation right there.
Game day breakfast pizza.
Game day breakfast. So we made our own crust. Is that what we're doing there?
Yeah, doing their own crust made from only eggs, mozzarella cheese, and Greek yogurt. I don't know how this guy's pulling it off. He's an animal. It's time for Mike and Caddo Mills to return serve.
I would say so, though. That's interesting using the Greek yogurt as a part of your crust.
I wonder how fluffy it is. Is it a thin crust? Is this going to be a cheese stuffed crust like Broaddus tried for the first time this week?
First time in my life this past week. Boy, that's a game changer right there.
Welcome to the good side, my friend.
Oh, geez.
All right, we got football today. There's no question about that, and we got some questions that need answered. When it comes, Broaddus, to the Panthers and the quarterback, I'm curious, are we getting to the point now where, hey, it was fun, we tried out the small quarterback thing, but it's time to just get back to, we got to draw a line in the sand. If you're under whatever feet tall, if you're under whatever, poundage, if you're not super fast like a Kyler Murray, like at some level we just have to say, all right, we tried the small quarterback, and for every Drew Brees, there's a million guys that just don't work.
It'll be interesting because we'll have another one, and this comes from my alma mater, LSU, with Jalen Daniels.
8 touchdowns?
Yes,
last night?
Yeah, and they were playing, Georgia State and all that, but he's been great all year. When he's been in those modes where LSU has a historically great offense, even better than their 2019 national championship team, offensive with Joe Burrow and Chase and Jefferson and all those guys. But the thing about it is, when you watch him play, he is so smooth, very much like Bryce Young, very smooth in the way he moves, the agility that he has, the way he dances out of the pocket, the quickness he has, the burst, the acceleration. But he is a slight player. He's a slight weight-wise. And that was the problem that when your crusty buddy here was starting to scout in 1992, is that we would have never had Kyler Murray as the first overall pick. We'd have never had Baker Mayfield as the first overall pick. Nothing against their ability. It's just that was a time where you didn't play with quarterbacks that were small. The Drew Breeses, you didn't play with Drew Brees. That's you just everybody. We were trained to go out. Now, there are a lot of big quarterbacks that have been absolute busts. When you start to talk about the Jeff Georges and people like that, there's some guys that have the size, the parameters, all those things that you absolutely love in a quarterback, but they're just as they struggle just as much as the small guy. We're in a different era when it comes to finding these quarterbacks, because you're trying to offenses are completely different than what we used to play with back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And so now the ability to scramble, to move, the ability, the RPOs, we're seeing it, still prevalent in some of these offenses. But man, it's making you cause for some pause when you it really tests you, when you have to have a plan, and you have to have a coaching staff that has a plan if you draft one of these quarterbacks that doesn't fit like the old crusty scout guys eye test.
Your pregame show of the Dallas Cowboys is brought to you by Papa John's. It's big, it's good, and it's only for Cowboys fans. The Cowboys special from Papa John's, a large one-topping pizza for only $9.99. Order today. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's, the official pizza of the Dallas Cowboys. We got Twolo Vader in the 214 letting us know that he's listening to us while cleaning out his garage, getting ready for the game, and he's rocking with some breakfast sandwiches with the hash brown inside.
Yeah, that's always a quality, and if you do the breakfast sandwich, I'd hope you have salsa involved with that, some type of just go with the straight ketchup on the hash browns, kind of doll those things up, because you could get the salsa flavor, with a little bit of that little peppery. It kind of goes. It's a real good combination with the potatoes.
I'm a huge fan. of that salsa. But if you're going to swing by a Whataburger and just pick up some ketchup that way, I'm not going to hate on it. Not going to hate on that.
I'm always, me, I'm a scratch guy.
I know you are.
I'm a scratch. If you can make your breakfast sandwich a little bit better, and nothing against Whataburger ketchup, it's outstanding. Mm-hmm. But I'm trying to find that honey butter, right?
Yeah, the honey butter.
Because I might try and find a way to use the honey butter from Whataburger as a in a turkey.
Honey butter turkey?
I can inject it into the the turkey. Yeah.
Yes, I love when you get to experiment.
I'm going to give it a go.
It's one of my favorite things.
We'll see.
214 actually had a dream last night that they missed the nooner because they thought it was a 3:25 start time. So
we have teammates that might be thinking that right now. We have some teammates that are kind of, they've been a part of these pregame shows. It seems like all year. What are we in week 11 now?
Yeah, something like that.
I think we've had people part of this for, at least for 10 weeks.
That's right.
And sometimes you just have to remind yourself, hey, I'm part of the Cowboys pre and post game show. Both.
And I feel like sometimes these guys have to remind themselves that they're a part of the team, and they have to, show up in the box score. What happened to Micah Parsons last week?
Yeah. Oh, what happened to Micah Parsons last week?
I'm curious, man. I mean, there's no excuse for him not to show up on the box score. He's getting one-on-one matchups, terrible Giants offensive line, a quarterback that's scared to death,
right?
And Micah Parsons puts
up. That's a legitimate question you're asking me there. You're not just throwing that out there, right?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, and we asked that question. I did on a couple of different platforms. I said, I used the word slowing down, and it's whichever want to read into a highlight. A headline. Feel free. But, I think it was a little bit disappointing for Micah Parsons, to have as many one-on-one pass rushes as he had. He was double-teamed 5 times in that game, rushing the passer, 13 one-on-one rushes, 7 of them against a backup right tackle with Tyree Phillips. Tyree Phillips, if you're the Giants and you're grading that game, Tyree Phillips had a pretty darn good game, especially blocking Micah Parsons.
Yeah, that just makes no sense.
Tyree Phillips gave up a sack. He gave up a sack to Fowler. And Fowler, by the way, Fowler's got a little David Irvin in him. Remember that, where David Irvin would play like 16 plays and have 2 sacks and a fumble recovery?
Yeah, pretty efficient.
Fowler's kind of one of those guys right now for you. But I will say this about it. It was surprising that Micah didn't have, and there were snaps where he was playing. I will say this, he had 5 snaps where he was in coverage, and as a team, they had 3 sacks. So that tells you that, okay, he's doing his job, and people will say, well, he's double teamed and all that. No, not all the time. When you have 13 single rushes, I would expect Micah Parsons to probably get out of against a backup tackle to probably get 2 sacks out of that, or a sack and a half. That would be my expectation of Micah Parsons.
For sure. I mean, the idea that last week he came away with 1 pressure,
and it was really on the twist. Matter of fact, Gallimore got home on the twist before Micah was able to. But it was a good pressure. It was absolutely good pressure, but. That's where I think that Micah Parsons and people, you could talk about Micah Parsons all you want. He's a hell of a player, one of the best in the league. But the opportunity to evaluate when he has a game where he's held off the stat sheet, you have to be honest with yourself and evaluate and say why. You're not trying to kill Micah Parsons as a player. You're trying to find out, why did he not have more sacks, or why did he not have more pressures?
Just more of an impact in general.
But his impact was in coverage.
Right.
It was absolutely in coverage, because I mentioned the five snaps he played in coverage. They had 3 sacks. So he was part of a team that did a good job against that Giants passing game.
Yeah, the 9-4-0 later in the season, Micah slows down. I can't get on board with that notion.
People, fandom of Cowboys fans or fandom of the Cowboys, whatever you want to say it is, you can't be critical of these players. You can be. It's not you're not trying to make anything personal here, but your evaluation of the player, you have to be able to say, well, why did he not play well, or why did he play well? Why did Brandon Cooks play well? Brandon Cooks has been running routes like this all year. They just finally got him the ball. So you have to be able to, as a Cowboy fan, I think you have to be able to understand that if your star player has a bad day and we evaluate the problem in the day, that you like, okay, that makes sense, instead of just getting super defensive about it.
Yeah, and I don't know that the 940 texting that in is trying to be defensive about it, but I think that it's just a misread on what took place last year. Everybody wanted to harp on Micah at the end of the season. Where's all the sacks? Where's all the sacks?
He got wore down.
Is he getting beat up?
Yeah.
And I understand that he did get beat up a little bit last year, and in this offseason he made it a point to bulk up a little bit so that he could withstand being more of a trench player than just an off-ball player. So I totally understand that, but when you look at the production last year, his pressures were still consistent week in, week out.
Yeah.
He was pressuring the quarterback. He was wreaking havoc. Teams started to, and I go back to that Philly game with Gardner Minshew, teams started to just say, okay, I'm not going to let you sack me. I'm just going to throw the ball in the dirt. I'm going to get rid of the football, because the Cowboys were on such a tear from a pass rush standpoint. By the time you got to week 11, 12, 13, 14, teams like, okay, we can't just lose the game because we get sacked a bunch of times.
Right.
So here's what we'll do. We'll just throw the ball away when we need to. We'll get rid of the ball faster than ever. So Micah's sack numbers went down, but his pressures were still there. He was still wreaking all the same havoc without actually getting the sack. And so I don't think it was much of a Micah slowing down thing last year. I think that was overstated. Now, I understand he probably physically felt a little bit.
He said he got wore down.
Yeah,
he
sure.
even admitted he got wore down.
No doubt about it. Yeah. But the production from a pressure standpoint was still very much there. I think the teams adjusted offensively to, okay, we're not just going to let him sack us every time. We're going to get rid of the football, but the pressure still being there telling me, okay, Micah was still a stud from start to finish last year. Now, he's bulked up this year, and he even said, I feel fresh. Like right now, that can't be an excuse, because it was, a week or two ago where he's talking about, I feel fresh. I feel great. This is awesome. Okay, so I'm not taking any of that. I think last week was just him not liking the game plan, being more of an off-ball player, not having as many opportunities, rushing the quarterback. That's just my sense from it. This isn't Micah Parsons slowing down, losing a step versus the worst team in the sport in the Giants last week on the fast turf at AT&T Stadium. This was just, I think, Micah moping around a little bit, and I hope to God we don't see that today. All right, 877-881-1053, an hour into the official pregame party of America's team. Let's go live to Uptown Charlotte and welcome in Babe Laufenberg next right here on The Fan.
Ho, ho, ho. Visiting.
party of the Dallas Cowboys. It's Babe Laufenberg time. Let's get out to Uptown Charlotte and welcome in our quarterback here. Babe, happy game day, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, and I love it's Babe Laufenberg time. It sounds like happy hour. Hey, happy hour. Babe Laufenberg time.
Well, I'm always made happy
that
when
would
you
be
join
closing
us, babe.
time for you, babe. Closing time.
You know what, Brian? 30 years ago, yes. Now I look at my watch and say, oh, my gosh, look at the time. It's 11 o'clock at night.
There you go. Yeah, that is closing time for sure.
You didn't shut it down in Charlotte last night?
Oh, the only thing I shut down was my TV after the Oregon State Washington game.
Good little college football Saturday, babe. I love it.
Yeah.
Hey, babe, can I ask you a real quick question about that? That game was intense rain throughout that game.
Oh,
the level of difficulty that those quarterbacks had to deal with last night, and it looked like the receivers were having just as many problems. I know we don't have weather problems in Charlotte today, but overall, just as we get into December and the calendar changes for these types of games.
Yeah, they're tough. I mean, when it's raining, you, as a quarterback, can't speak for all positions, but as a quarterback, you can deal with the cold. You can deal with a little wind. The rain and the wet balls, and if anyone watched that game last night, it wasn't just a little miss.
No,
I mean, it was just pouring. And you every throw you make, you end up, what happens is you end up cradling the ball a little bit in the bottom of your hand as opposed to getting on top of it, just so you don't lose it. And I kind of felt sorry for him because a big game, all that, and now the elements play a part in it. And I know that's football, but yeah, I hate the rain games. Quickly, I used to sit there. Troy and I roomed together on the road and at home. And the first thing you'd look out the window, you'd open your curtains in the morning, game day, and you'd see the rain coming down, and we both just were like, him more than me because he was starting.
Well, babe,
so I would say, hey, don't get hurt today. I don't want to play in this either.
Well, hey, just standing around in the rain ain't that fun either, babe, so I hear you.
Babe.
No.
Yeah, you can dispel a rumor or myth. Troy honestly hated playing in rain games, didn't he?
Hated it.
He hated it. So he legitimately would open the windows and go, damn, it's pouring down rain out there today. He hated it that bad.
He would go out into the hallway and do some sprints in the hopes that he could pull his hamstring and get out of the game. That's how bad. The funny thing was, Brian, and you're in the scouting world, everybody talks about the big hands,
the
right?
Hands,
big hands.
yes.
Troy has huge hands, so he's supposed to handle the ball.
Right.
And he did not like it. I played with Joe Theismann in Washington, and Joe was, 6 feet tall, little guy, little hands. I never saw a better bad ball thrower than Theismann, because we obviously NFC East. You're up there in New York and Washington and Philly. Didn't really faze him, and so I kind of got away from the whole got big hands, you can throw it well in the bad weather. After watching Troy with his monster hands not be able to throw it, and Joe Theismann with his tiny Sean Sharif hands being able to throw it.
Sean catching some strays there, it looks like.
I hope he's listening.
No, absolutely. He is listening, and he's going to text you here right now. Get ready for that.
And we're going to force feed it to him tomorrow. We'll run that one back, babe. That was a good play.
All right, babe,
love it.
We're in week 2 of team you're playing, not playing great right now. And so is it good that it's back-to-back this way, that you kind of, like, you saw how you were able to do it last week and you carry that over to this game?
It's funny. Yeah. Sorry, Brad and I were just talking about that before. You got 2 in a row where you got us, people call them trap games. I don't usually refer to them as that, but you got 2 in a row where if you come out and play reasonably well, you're going to beat the other team just because you're that much better. And, and after what they did to New York last week, I don't know what Mike McCarthy kind of tells his team, because you kind of have a few bullets in your chamber, so to speak, and you fired the one last week about let's not take this team lightly, and they didn't, and they crushed them. So what do you say this week?
I think the move here, babe, is you get the whole team. You're in the road hotel, so you're all gathered together, and you just pull that projector screen down and you fire up the Niners Cowboys game from a few weeks ago. And just say, hey, let's not forget. Let's not forget where we came from.
Exactly, but we all get very parochial in our thinking. Like, this is the only team that has ever had 2 games in a row where you've played an inferior opponent.
Right.
I mean, how many times did New England go on the field with Tom Brady, right, where they were going to clearly be the better team, especially playing in that AFC East where Miami had been terrible for years and Buffalo had been terrible for years and the Jets were terrible for years. where you had to figure out a way to win, and obviously good teams do that, right?
Absolutely. And I believe this Cowboy football team is a good team, and they've shown up and beaten the bad teams plenty, but doing it on the road will add another layer of challenge, as we know the Cowboys are much better at home. But Babe, when it comes to the quarterbacks in this game, I love talking quarterbacks with you. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the young man Bryce Young, or the Dak dominance that we've seen for the last few weeks?
Eric, it's your show. I go where you lead.
All right,
where you lead, I will follow. Anywhere that you want me to.
Well, talk to me about this Bryce Young then, man. What are you seeing from him? What was your evaluation coming out? And then what have you seen so far this season?
My evaluation coming out was I liked C.J. Stroud better. He would have been my number one pick. If I were the Carolina Panthers and I had that pick, which they did. Now, I had no idea that he would be doing what he's doing. But just in analyzing him and watching him, just a more physical guy, C.J. Stroud, right? He's 5 inches taller. He's about 30 pounds heavier. I know they list Bryce Young at 204, and I know he bulked up to weigh that at the combine, but he's not 204. So
no.
Give me the guy. If the talent is equal, and Stroud actually has a stronger arm, if the talent is equal, give me the bigger guy. Give me the guy 5 inches taller and 30 pounds heavier. You're in the NFL. And people talk about, well, he's not seeing the field well, right? Bryce Young. He's not seeing the field because he's 5'10". He can't see over people.
Yeah.
So it just, he's an outlier. As I say, he's an outlier from what an NFL quarterback looks like. And people will bring up Drew Brees, and I said, you're exactly right. But he was 6 feet tall, and that was 22 years ago. So he was drafted.
Yeah.
So if you tell me every 22 years a guy comes along, and then you mention Kyler Murray, and we'll see where his career goes, but he's a guy that runs 4.3. He's the fastest player on the field. Bryce Young is a good runner, but he's not a great runner. He doesn't scare you running the way Kyler Murray does.
Yeah, Babe, I think I go back to the time like when I was in the league in scouting in the 90s, and we were evaluating guys like your size, playing in the league, and we just weren't paying a whole heck of a lot of attention to the shorter quarterbacks, and it was wrong that we didn't give Doug Flutie enough credit for how he played, but Doug Flutie was a great quarterback in Canada, more so than he was in the NFL. Are we going to start to see a little bit of a flip in the scouting world, or back to the kind of quarterbacks that we evaluated, or is it just because that's the type of quarterbacks that are playing today, that size of quarterback, the smaller quarterbacks?
Yeah, and I think the whole thing is the mobile quarterback. So much of the plays being made today, and we're seeing it with Dak, right, since the bye of being able to move around and extend plays and do all that stuff. You don't have to be a 4-3 guy like we talked about with Kyler Murray. You just have to have the ability to escape, avoid the rush. These athletes on defense are getting so good. I know the offensive guys are too, but you've got to be able to now, in today's world, be able to extend plays and get out and avoid rushes. And so I think that's why you're seeing the non-prototypical quarterback, right? But ultimately, John Elway, one of my favorite quotes by a quarterback, right? He said, they pay me for third down. So anybody can go up, hand off on first down, maybe throw a little quick out on second, but all of a sudden, here comes 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7. You got to be able to put your foot in the ground and extend the drive, right? You got to be able to convert on 3rd down, which, by the way, we talk about Dak Prescott. He is the leading passer right now on 3rd down. He's completing 73% on 3rd down. He's averaging almost 10 yards an attempt on 3rd down. He's got the highest passer rating in the NFL on 3rd down. And to me, that's a huge statistic. If you tell me I got a quarterback who's really good on 3rd down, I'm going to tell you, hey, you got a good chance to win a lot of games.
Babe Laufenberg with us here on The Fan. Now, when it comes to this Panthers offense and what they're doing with their rookie quarterback, Frank Reich, the head coach, he's the play caller, he's not the play caller, all of a sudden he's back being the play caller. What's the deal? Have you ever seen that, Babe, where a guy relinquishes play calling duty and then less than a month later, boom, he steals it back?
I have not. Obviously, we've seen where they make a play caller change during the season. Sometimes they just kind of demote the guy. Mike McCarthy did it with Tom Clements in Green Bay. Took over, basically midseason, 10 games in, but did not give it back, and he stayed on the staff. Sometimes they demote the guy by firing him, like Buffalo did, right?
Right.
Ken Dorsey. So here, I always like Bill Parcells' quote where he said, different, everybody wants different until different isn't good anymore. So everybody wanted a new play caller from Frank Reich until the guy that replaced him for the last 3 weeks, they were even less productive. Fewer points, fewer yards, fewer first downs over the last 3 weeks. So here comes Frank Reich. And I never know the building. I don't know if that's the owner, David Tepper, getting involved, and he's very involved with this franchise. I don't know who makes that decision. The interesting thing is when Frank Reich was introduced as new head coach of the Carolina Panthers, he basically said, I'm not going to be the play caller. Changed his mind somewhere along the line, or somebody changed it for him.
Yeah.
So he's head coach as your play caller, as you mentioned. Then the offensive coordinator takes over for 3 weeks, who, by the way, he had never worked with before, and I think that makes a difference too. He had never worked with Thomas Brown, who was the OC. First year they were together. So you never know if now you say, hey, that philosophy isn't mine. But here's the bottom line too, guys. The plays are always a lot better when you're calling them when you have Patrick Mahomes and Aaron Rodgers,
sure,
or a Tom Brady as your quarterback.
No,
you become a better play caller.
Funny how that works.
Yeah.
What do you?
I laugh though. I look at Bryce Young, guys, and I'm saying, if he had just had, he doesn't have a lot around him, and the offensive line is kind of a mess,
right?
As a lot of NFL teams are right now. But if he had somebody like, let's say a Christian McCaffrey to hand the ball off to, and let's say like a DJ Moore to throw it to,
right?
Who were here last year, who both got traded away. Of course, DJ Moore got traded for Bryce Young. They're part of that package. So he doesn't have a lot of help around him. And as a young quarterback, rookie quarterback, you need people around you to help you out sometimes. And he just doesn't have a lot of that.
Babe, the Cowboy running game appeared to get a little traction last week with Pollard. He'd had a really nice game against the Giants in week 1. But Rico Dowdle has emerged as a guy. He's finally healthy and all that. Does Rico Dowdle, would you like to see more of a split? I know you're not the OC or the head coach or anything like that, but just from an evaluation standpoint of the Cowboys running attack, do you need to see more of a split with Rico Dowdle getting more opportunities?
I think Rico has earned more opportunities, and I think most people would agree with me. So, I'd like to see him get the ball 2, 3, 4 times, put him out there for a series or 2 more.
Right.
I don't want to necessarily take the ball out of Tony Pollard's hands, and I understand he hasn't put up the numbers that he did last year. And don't ask me why, okay? And I mean this, don't ask me why, but I just feel like Tony Pollard is going to bust loose a little bit in this game.
Sure.
And it's like I say, one of my pet peeves is you hear announcers all over, right? College, pro, whatever. Team comes out in the second half, they're performing better, and they will say, the halftime adjustments they made are really key. And I'm like, okay, but you got to tell me what the halftime adjustments are. You can't just say that. You got to tell me, and here's what they did. And they wouldn't be able to tell you. So, Tony Pollard, I feel like a big game's coming. Just don't ask me why.
Certainly a fair matchup there versus this Panthers run defense that has struggled all season long. So that's good news. We'll see about Dowdle. It looks like he's going to be active dealing with the ankle injury. So it'll be fun to see this offense get to work, see if the rushing attack can get going. Babe, we appreciate the time as always, man. Enjoy the game.
Okay, thank you. And let me just tell you very quickly, my day got off to a good start. Krispy Kreme donut in the press box and a coffee.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Good work.
Babe's having a good day.
Yes, sir. I love it. I love it.
Okay.
You're the man,
you,
babe.
guys.
There he goes, Babe Laufenberg, right here on the official pregame show of America's Team, brought to you by Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. It is Miller time, and as we approach just over 90 minutes to kickoff, we'll go around the NFL, look at some of these games today's, get you set for today's slate, and we'll go behind enemy lines with the voice of the Panthers, all coming up next right here on The Fan.
Hi, I'm Frank.
up. Mike McCarthy should have dialed up that Niners tape just to remember where they came from. Little embarrassment. Get mopped for 4 quarters, but
should have said Arizona.
704 said, nah, you got to pull out that Arizona tape. And I think he's 100% right. You pull out the Arizona tape last night if you're Mike McCarthy. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to bring the sledgehammer and the watermelon. You don't have to do any of that stuff. You just dial up the Arizona tape and you say, you guys have a great night's sleep. We'll see you tomorrow.
I'm going to say this. After watching that quarterback play in Minnesota,
Josh Dobbs,
that might not be a bad loss the way that cat's playing. I know he was awful the games after the Cowboy game, I guess, but I felt like that Arizona was going to give Dallas problems. It's the only time when we've asked to pick games, it's the only one I've been wrong on. You know,
you picked the Cowboys to barely win, but you knew it was going to be.
No,
a tough
I'm not going to be that guy. But there was a side of me that felt like that this Arizona game had the potential of being one that they could lose, just by the pin and pull and the
speed they had. I mean, they had some guys,
Connor, and they did a great job of attacking Dallas's defense. You know, they did the plays that they were able to make, those big chunk plays. They schemed Dallas up really well in that game. So I can understand why they would lose that game. They had a really nice game plan and they executed, and Dallas didn't play well enough on offense.
No offensive line as well. That was when they had the 3 of their starters out, and McCarthy just went into a shell.
Went into the shell as a play caller, but the 3 guys out, I don't think were the reason why you lost that football game. You gave up some bad chunk plays
for sure.
You didn't cover. It was a 69-yard pass that went for a big play that you didn't cover the guy. You know, so the Arizona loss, they schemed you. I think they schemed you just as well as the 49ers did. I think they did a great job of scheming you. But, man, watching Josh Dobbs play, geez, he looks legitimate right now.
He absolutely does. 704 also notes that they're in Charlotte for the game, and it looks to be a Dallas takeover.
Yeah,
the early returns
there's no
here.
question. The fans, my experience of traveling to games with Cowboy fans there, like we would play at games there in against the Commanders, and those Cowboy fans, if you're in that area, and I know it's not really super close, but Cowboy fans in that area, they will find a way to either go north or go south in order to see their team. It's not always just hanging out out there in Washington. They'll travel down, much like the fans in California do, north or south. They'll travel north or south to go see their team play. That's what this fan base is. I've always been super impressed with the Dallas Cowboy fans, especially on the road. They honestly make a big difference. They really do in these games.
America's team, man.
Yep.
Looks like 85% of the tickets at DraftKings Sportsbook are on the Cowboys to cover the 10.5 points in Charlotte today. A couple of fun facts looking around the NFL, getting you set for the noon slate here. Just over 90 minutes to kick off. There will be 3 sets of brothers on the field for today's Bears-Lions.
Detroit and Chicago, right?
Yeah. Now, it looks like one of these guys, Chicago's linebacker, Noah Sewell.
He's not active, right? Something's wrong with him?
He's ruled out. He's got a knee injury, but his brother, Penei Sewell, is the left tackle or actually, I think he's right tackle now.
Right tackle.
For the Detroit Lions, but one of the best in the sport, of course, Penei Sewell, but his brother, Noah Sewell, linebacker for the Bears, won't be playing. But you also have the St. Brown brothers, Lions wide receiver Amon-Ra and Bears wide receiver Equanimous. And then you have the Lions, who are always carrying a pair of brothers on their team because they have 2 pass rushers, Romeo Okwara and Julian Okwara. How cool is that?
Yeah.
2 guys, same position, playing as brothers on a team. That's pretty dang cool.
That is very cool.
So it'll be a family affair with Detroit and Chicago today in Detroit. I got the Lions. I think me and Dawson have the Lions in Survivor for G-Bag Nation this week. So definitely going to need the Lions to show up in a big way. The Bears get Justin Fields back at the quarterback spot, so we'll see how he steps in after he's missed the last few weeks. But who do you have for Survivor?
I took Commanders.
You got the Commanders
against the Giants. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and the Giants already beat the Commanders this year.
Right.
There's no way the Giants are going to beat the Commanders twice.
I haven't said if the Commanders lost, I do a double bet payoff.
You did say that
because I just, to me, the Giants, that's a hopeless situation right now.
It might have to be we might, because next week being the Thanksgiving, we might need to do a KNC Peace-a-thon bet payoff.
I'm in at 6 a.m. on that Wednesday. I'm right off the jump.
If you take that Commanders L today in Survivor, maybe
might have to do a bet payoff to start the show.
A little
right?
payoff to start Peace-a-thon with the KNC Masterpiece.
Absolutely.
I'll be strolling in at 10 a.m. So if the Lions lose, maybe I'll do a little payoff there. Add to the festivities of what is always a fantastic broadcast. Peace-a-thon with the KNC Masterpiece. Now, I saw this as well. This blew my mind, dude. We saw Joe Burrow go down, your LSU Tiger.
Yeah.
And he's obviously been banged up plenty throughout his career. And the offensive line has been an issue in Cincinnati from the jump. They had a chance to draft Penei Sewell, who we were just discussing, but they take Jamar Chase.
Right.
I would have gone Sewell there, but, I mean, hey, Jamar Chase has been a stud. They get to a Super Bowl. Hard to argue with that, but they've either refused to build the offensive line, or when they've done it, they've just picked the wrong guys, like Aleo Collins, who is just not the same player, and they pay him to go be the right tackle, and it just does not work out. But how about this? Andrew Luck, he retired early from the NFL, age 29, and he suffered a ton of injuries.
He did.
And it felt like he was sacked and hit all the time.
He was.
Through 55 games, he was sacked 115 times. Joe Burrow, through 52 games, has been sacked 148 times.
Yeah.
So we think of Andrew Luck as a guy who, he hung him up early, got banged up a ton. His offensive line's always sucked. He was sacked a million times. Burrow's been sacked even more, 30-plus more times in a few less games.
I'm going to ask you this question. I think on Friday on our show on 105.3 The Fan, you called Joe Burrow injury-prone.
Well, I will say Dawson threw that term out first, and then I was like, you know what?
You started. I didn't know if it was you or Dawson, but
Dawson threw it out, and then I was like, yeah, you know what? I guess we could start throwing that label around on Joe Burrow. And then I said, for as much as Joe Burrow's a bit fragile, his team
doesn't protect him,
is incapable of protecting him.
Right.
And so that's obvious there.
That's obvious now.
148 times in 52 games. And he's had the knee reconstruction. He had an MCL sprain.
Calf.
He's had the calf for sure, and now he's got the wrist issue. So, man, I'll tell you what, Joe Burrow is one of my favorite quarterbacks in the league. He is an absolute stud, but you got to protect the guy. You can't have your quarterback being sacked 150 times in like 50 games. That is just absolutely ridiculous. And speaking of ridiculous and quarterbacks, it looks like Ian Rappaport reporting the most likely return game for Aaron Rodgers with the Jets would be Christmas Eve, December 24th versus the Commanders. That's week 16. So that would give Rodgers 3 more games to play this season, if he can manage to do that.
He's going to pull this off, isn't he?
It'd be. I guess. I mean, he seems hellbent on it. I imagine he wants to prove the world and science wrong as much as possible. That even
if you could come back from this,
even if the Jets are sort of out of it and eliminated, and they're kind of in the hunt still, but they need to win some games here. I think they get the Bills today, and then on Friday, Black Friday special, the Jets get the Dolphins.
Right.
So 2 divisional games. You better win at least one of those, if not both, if you want to keep your playoff hopes nice and alive. But Aaron Rodgers looks like if he's going to return, it's going to be on December 24th, Christmas Eve. And like I said, I think he wants to return so bad.
What a present for the Jets if that's the case, right?
Anything to not watch Zach Wilson.
Let me ask you this. Even if the Jets are going south, on this, the record-wise, and Rodgers still wants to play, do you let him play? If you're the Jets, if they have no shot for the playoffs, say they lose today in Buffalo and then they lose against the Dolphins, and it turns into where they have no shot, do you still let him go play?
I would be hesitant, because if I'm the Jets, I'm going, hey, we got you under contract for next year. We need you help. I can't risk next year. I've already lost you for this entire season. If we're eliminated or basically eliminated from playoff contention, I think if I'm the Jets, I would be advocating him not step onto the field and risk further injury that could bleed into next year. but that might be easier said than done. Aaron Rodgers,
he might tell you to go bleep yourself.
Right.
I'm playing anyway.
He's playing to the tune of his own drum or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't know that you could necessarily hold him out there, but I would prefer to if I'm the Jets, if I'm not really actually playing for anything. I mean, my gosh, it looks like the Jets are going to try and make a move this offseason to acquire Devontae Adams once again, reunite Adams and Rodgers. So we'll see how that works out for him. But right now, 90 minutes to kick off Cowboys-Panthers. It's time to go behind enemy lines.
Pinheiro, this time from 23 yards for the Panthers' first win of the season. From the right hash. Let's do it again. Jansen, snap, Hackers hold, Pinheiro's kick. The Panthers win! The first win of the Frank Reich era. Bryce Young's first win as the Panthers quarterback. 15-13, Carolina over Houston. Your final.
Here we go, out to Uptown Charlotte. We head behind enemy lines. Voice of the Panthers, Anish Shroff, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Shroff, thanks for giving us some time, man. How are you?
I'm good. I was just in Texas a couple of days ago, so it's kind of wild. I was at UTSA USF doing that game on Friday, and then this game was in Dallas, would have made for, or Arlington would have made for easy travel, but happy to be back home.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Now, okay, so how does this usually work for you? Are you usually doing 2-3 games a week throughout the course of the season?
Usually 2 games a week, Friday night for ESPN and then Sunday for the Panthers. And as we get into crossover season, like next week with a couple of basketball games, we'll have 4 games next week. So it gets fun next week.
Do you have times where you don't know what city you're in?
100%.
Do you wake up in a hotel room and have to look at the phone or something like that to figure out what city you're in?
So last week when the Panthers played on Thursday night, we're at Chicago on Thursday night. Then I had SMU on Friday. So I'm in Dallas on Friday. Sunday, I had a basketball game at UNC at Chapel Hill. And I remember waking up, I guess it would have been Sunday morning, going, North Carolina. I am in my home state, Chapel Hill. Okay, basketball today. So, yeah, it's a little bit of planes, trains, automobiles this time of the year.
That's beautiful, man. Well, as you look at today's matchup, Panthers-Cowboys, what is sort of the overarching narrative on the Panthers side of things coming into this one?
I think it's a team that is still searching. You're 1-8. There hasn't been a lot to write home about this season. It's a team offensively that doesn't really have an identity. If you look at what they've done, they haven't been able to run the ball. Outside of Adam Thielen, there has not been a consistent playmaker. I know Bryce Young becomes a lightning rod because of the position he plays, but to me, he's tracking like a rookie would. There have been ups, there have been downs. You don't expect progress to be linear. Given what C.J. Stroud has done in Houston, I think the comparison becomes a part of the conversation, and that makes things maybe a little bit more difficult for Bryce Young when everyone's saying, well, C.J. Stroud is doing it. Yeah, C.J. Stroud is doing it at a level that we haven't seen a rookie quarterback play at since Cam Newton. So he's an outlier, but Bryce has had his ups and his downs. He has not had that big breakout game. I've said it on the air the last few weeks. I think that game is coming. But the reality is we got to be better around him. We got to protect him. We got to get separation. We need guys who can stretch the field vertically. If you look at what the Panthers do, they're up there in the top 5 in the NFL in plays per drive, but in the bottom 2 in explosive plays. So for them to score, it's a chore. They got to go 12, 15 plays, 75, 80 yards down the field. They can't get the chunk plays, and that's made it a challenge offensively.
What about the switch and you go from Reich to Thomas Brown and then back to Reich? Was that decision you feel like made because they're trying to give the quarterback some continuity here, or is it an evaluation? And I know the evaluation is he is your guy, but where has that? Was there a decision made on why you go from one to the other and then back to the original?
Well, Frank Reich said at the beginning of the year, the plan all along at some point, and he did not give a date, was to hand off the play calling to Thomas Brown. They're 0-6 in a bye week. That was the time they decided to turn this thing over. Well, in the last 15 quarters, the Panthers have 2 offensive touchdowns. And I think Frank Reich now is just betting on himself. This is a team that needs to find wins. Reich is the more experienced play caller. Thomas Brown had not called plays prior to this season. So from a very surface level point, it just feels like Frank Reich saying, okay, if we're going to get this right, let me just bet on myself.
Voice of the Panthers, Anish Shroff with us here on The Fan. When you look defensively, they got some guys out. You'll get Brian Burns back, one of the better edge rushers in the league. But the corner situation, no J.C. Horn, no C.J. Henderson. What does this Panthers defense sort of do well?
You know, they've actually been pretty good defensively. If you look at the last 3 games, against Houston, they held a pretty good offense to 13 points. Against Indy, the final score said 27-13. There were 2 pick sixes in that game. Defense held Indy to 13. And then against Chicago, you held the Bears to 16, missing 6-7 starters from your opening day roster. Again, that should be good enough to win. This defense, despite the injuries, has been pretty good. They're top 10 against the pass. It's a 3-4 alignment. It's designed to limit big plays. It's designed to force teams to methodically work down the field without negative plays, without penalties. Defensively, I think it's been a very pleasant surprise this season because of the injuries. When they're healthy, it's a really good defense. And the guy that I would watch for is number 49, Frankie Louvu. He doesn't get enough attention nationally. He's a linebacker. He's a playmaker. He can get in the backfield. He can run sideline to sideline. The dude is a Pro Bowl, All-Pro level player, and if this team had a better record, he would be getting that attention.
I kind of feel like in watching your tape as well, and that was a really good insight by you there. Derek Brown, too. You know, the Cowboys have had some problems with defensive tackles. I know last week with Dexter Lawrence and the Giants and stuff, but I'll tell you, Derek Brown, and you watch him on tape, like when something happens where they give up a play, he is like in guys' face, very emotional-looking player when things kind of go wrong. But when it goes right, he's usually involved with that.
He had a breakout season last year. The first 2 years, you were kind of waiting on him to play like the top 10 pick that he was. Last year, he was a menace. In my opinion, he was the defensive MVP of the team a year ago. And the early part of this year, I mean, he's putting up 7-8 tackles a game sometimes. He had double-digit tackles last week. And again, this guy plays on the defensive line in a 3-4 alignment. He is a game wrecker. And the one thing that you'll see, he rarely comes off the field. He'll play the majority of the snaps.
Anish, we ask all the play-by-play guys when they join us each week, what type of eating do you do in the booth during halftime?
Well, today is different because my wife and daughter over the weekend got a stomach bug, and they have not been feeling well. And I am hoping that I don't get it, so I brought some Pepto with me just in case. So I'm probably going to lay off the heavy food in the press box today. Normally, though, I'm kind of more of a, power bar kind of guy, and then I'll go a hot tea, pregame, and one at halftime. That's my routine.
I like it. I like it quite a bit. Okay, very good. Well, I mean, do you ever run into any emergency bathroom situations? I mean, if you got the Pepto.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to tell you this story. This is a pretty funny story. So this is a couple of years ago. I'm calling an NCAA lacrosse quarterfinal at Notre Dame. And we were supposed to be in the football stadium, but because of COVID, graduation got pushed back, so they put us in the lacrosse field. And there's 2 games, 2 quarterfinal games. Both of them go into overtime. And normally we have a little fill period in between that we can use the restroom, get something to eat. For whatever reason, we didn't have studio support, so we're covering the interim between games. So we get to halftime of the first game, and it's hot. It's May. It's 80 degrees. I've had a lot of Gatorade, a lot of water, and I'm like, all right, I got to go to the bathroom. And my producer's like, dude, you can't go. I said, why not? He goes, well, we have to fill halftime. I go, you're kidding me. We don't have any taped element we can run? No. So we stick on for halftime. So we get into the third quarter, and it's getting to be an emergency. Now, you got to remember, this press box at Notre Dame is completely open. Completely open. You got a woman in front of me, so we're in the era where, yes, I got to go, hand me a bottle, but again, I'm not losing my job over that, right? So I'm starting to sweat we get into the fourth quarter, and we're getting close to an emergency. And now Maryland is playing Notre Dame, and Maryland is up 4 goals with like 5 minutes to go. So I'm thinking, as long as this game doesn't go to overtime, I got a chance.
Yeah.
And again, there's no bathroom in the press box. The only one is on the concourse. So you got to go out of the press box, down through the stands, into the tunnel, and then use the public restroom that all the fans do. So I'm just like, okay, if we can just get this game as soon as it's over, I'll run off and go. Well, Maryland was losing the game, excuse me. So Maryland starts to score. They score again. They tie the game. We go to overtime. So right before overtime, I hit my producer in the talkback button. I said, hey, hold the opening face-off of overtime. I got to run. It's an emergency. So before we even get off the air at the end of regulation, I make a beeline. I run out of the press box, down in the concourse. And, of course, you got all that water in you. It's not like a quick 15-second, So I'm in there. Right, exactly. I feel like a racehorse. And as I'm running back up through the concourse, I see that they have just started and they've taken the opening faceoff. And in lacrosse, in overtime, what happens, the team that usually wins the faceoff, they bring it into their attacking area and they call a timeout. So in the back of my mind, knowing this, I might have a couple of seconds to catch my breath, catch my moment. Maryland wins the faceoff. I'm running up. I get into the press box. I put the headset on, and they don't call timeout. And literally the first words out of my mouth, DeMeo wins it for Maryland.
Huffing and puffing. Oh, that's great, dude. What a story. Thank you, Anish. That was fantastic. This has been a real treat for us. Appreciate the time, and enjoy the game today.
Thanks, guys. See you.
There he goes, Anish Shroff, Panthers play-by-play voice. My gosh, how about that? That's impressive stuff there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hard-working guy.
Yes,
a lot
absolutely.
of games.
Not going to lose his job over that.
Nope.
But emergencies are emergencies.
Yep.
All right, we'll get you back out to Uptown Charlotte, Bank of America Stadium. Let's welcome in Christy Scales, the best sideline reporter in the business. She'll give us the scoop next right here on The Fan.
Experience the most electrifying.
At Bank of America Stadium, where Christy Scales, Cowboys sideline reporter, is here to bring us some information as we get you set for Cowboys-Panthers. Christy, thanks for the time. Happy game day. It sounds like there's a giant contingent of Cowboys fans out there. Is that true?
Oh, my gosh. Yeah, so they opened the stadium 90 minutes before kickoff, and of the maybe, I'd say 8,000 to 10,000 people that are already inside the building, it's probably no exaggeration to say that it's 80 to 85% Cowboys fans. And as we were pulling into the stadium on the team buses, and that's about 3.5 hours before kickoff, they had a really nice scene here in Uptown with some tailgating out there in the adjacent parking lots. But it was all of the tents and the stuff set up that was all Cowboys. And even the merchants who put up things for jerseys and T-shirts and everything, it was all Cowboys. And we know that Frank Reich admitted during press conference this week that the Panthers offense practiced a silent count this week, which is unusual when it's a home game. The crowd's supposed to be silent when it's the home team on offense, but they know it's going to be a huge Cowboy contingent today. So we're expecting them to have to do silent count maybe most of the game.
Christy, going into this one, Rico Dowdle was on the injury report, or was an ad with an ankle. Status, and is he one of the inactives today?
He is active. He will play, so he will be the backup to Pollard. So that's good news. Also, Kevontae Turpin, who missed last week's game with the shoulder injury, he is active today and will handle the returns and be the sixth wide receiver. But because you have Rico Dowdle, who is playing, even though he missed even though he was added, as you said, Bryan, with the injury to the ankle this week, with him playing and then with Kevontae Turpin returning, that means that Deuce Vaughn, the rookie running back, is inactive again this week. So this is 4 out of the past 5 games that Deuce Vaughn is inactive. He did play last week as the return specialist and got some mop-up duty in the fourth quarter at running back, but that's because Turpin was out last week. The other inactives are Awesome Richards, the rookie offensive lineman, and then 2 cornerbacks, Noah Igbenogany and Eric Scott. So 2 usual suspects who've been inactive most of the season. And then one thing we were talking about, Rico Dowdle, and I know earlier in the pregame that Babe Laufenberg, and I think you guys agreed that you're thinking that this is going to be a big day for Tony Pollard in the run game. Did y'all agree with Babe on that this could be a breakout game? Yeah, I'm thinking so too, just because some of the things I'm hearing, one of the things is there have been a lot of injuries with the secondary for the Panthers. It's like, well, why are you talking about injuries to the secondary when it's the front line and the linebackers that handle the run game? Well, one thing is with DiCaprio Boodle, who he's going to start in place of C.J. Henderson, who's out for a second straight week. There's a guy, we have some coaches on the staff here who had him at Nebraska. He's a first-year player, but sometimes when you have a young guy who maybe needs some extra help, maybe you have to devote some safeties there or maybe play a little more shell. You're not going to be dropping that safety in the box.
Right.
And so there's some thought that this could be, that can open things up for this run game. And indeed, this could be the big week for the Cowboys run game to really break through.
That would certainly be exciting. I think Dowdle looked really, really sharp last week. The rushing attack certainly better last week versus the Giants. You got the Brandon Cooks breakout game last week. Michael Gallup making some plays. Anybody else you'd like to see breakout today?
Yeah, I want to see Jalen Brooks, the rookie wide receiver. He is a local kid, right? So he's from Hickory Creek, which is maybe 20 minutes from here at Bank of America Stadium. It's just east of uptown Charlotte. And then he also began his college career at Wingate, which is about 30 miles southeast. And so Jalen has a bunch of friends and family. He's got his high school coaches here. He's got some teammates and some buddies from Wingate that are here. So in his first real extensive action last week, he got to play a lot in the fourth quarter. Actually played throughout the game last week, but had the 4 catches last week. So if you hear a lot of cheering, if Brooks makes a play, it's because he's probably, I won't say a whole section, but he's got a lot of hometown folks who'll be cheering for him.
Christy, that he played well enough to earn more time, right? This should have been big,
absolutely,
because last week he was up because of the situation with Turpin, but the coaches felt like that was good enough to make it happen, though, right?
I agree totally. And so it'll be interesting to see who gets more snaps in the offense this week, whether it's Brooks or Turpin. But of course, the way they use Turpin, sometimes they'll have him in the backfield or have him do those jet sweeps or fake jet sweeps. So it's not really an apples to apples things in comparison in terms of Brooks and Turpin because of the way that they utilize Turpin in some of the specialty packages. But yeah, I mean, this is good news. And it's one of the things where the fact that the Cowboys have had such lopsided wins and that you're able to get these young guys so much play in the fourth quarter or second halves of these games, it's really paying off for a guy like Brooks.
Thank you so much, Christy. Appreciate the time. There she goes, Cowboys sideline reporter Christy Scales. We'll hear from Mike McCarthy and continue to break the game down. Cowboys Panthers.
I'm Darren Woodson, former Dallas Cowboy player and Super Bowl champ.
Broaddus.
It's week 11 here on the official pregame party of America's team, Cowboys Panthers on the Dallas Cowboys radio network. Great to have you in on another Cowboy game day. Brian Broaddus, you, sir, are a Super Bowl champion, former scout of the Dallas Cowboys, and this is now back-to-back games. The Cowboys taking on some lesser opponents, but they're doing it on the road today in uptown Charlotte, outdoors, still on the turf. But what do you want to see from the Cowboys today?
Well, you want to be able to carry some of that offensive momentum that they've had the last several weeks now onto the road and be able to get really everybody involved with the offense. You want to see the offensive line, their ability. I'd love to see a balanced game. I'd love to see a game where it's Dak Prescott is, say, 23 of 28 for 262 yards, a couple of touchdowns. Maybe you get the running game going where it's like 140 yards, where you have that nice, that balance to it, where it's just not all Dak Prescott throwing the ball, which has been pretty good for the Dallas Cowboys. I think what you're going to expect from the Panthers today is when they play against teams that have really outstanding wide receivers. I shouldn't say outstanding good. I should say outstanding wide receivers, is they tend to go into like a zone package. They played the Dolphins 94% zone against them. Seattle 92% zone against them. Detroit 83% zone against them. I have a feeling today with how the Panthers are compromised in their secondary a little bit today that the Cowboys are going to see a lot of zone coverage. Just because I feel like that the Panthers don't want to give up the big play. They want to keep everything in front. But I'm looking for that balance. If this turns into a passing game, Dak Prescott and these receivers can clearly, handle that. But I just like to see them have that where they 2 or 3 plays where they say, okay, we can hang our hat on these running plays. Maybe it's something that, there's not going to be a huge game plan when you start to talk about the Commander game coming up Thursday. That thing, there's going to be no practice. So anything that you do today that you kind of like might carry over to that game plan against the Commanders on Thursday afternoon here at AT&T.
The official Cowboy pregame show is brought to you by Papa John's. It's big, it's good, and it's only for Cowboys fans. The Cowboys special from Papa John's, a large one-topping pizza for only $9.99. Order today. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's, the official pizza of the Dallas Cowboys. And Broaddus, let's continue this preview here, brought to you by Sleep Number, the official sleep and wellness partner of the Dallas Cowboys. What do you see in terms of opportunity for the Cowboys running the ball today? Dowdle was making some plays last week versus a lowly Giants defense. Pollard getting it done as well. Do you think this is another good opportunity to get the rushing attack going?
It absolutely is. The Panthers have teams have run the ball at Brian Burns, who is one of their outstanding pass rushers. He'll move from side to side. This is I call it very similar to what Terrence Steele several weeks ago when faced the Eagles, when he had to deal with Hassan Reddick. That kind of that type of player when you start to talk about a pass rusher. But in the run game, it's a little bit different. You can run the ball at Brian Burns, and he'll give up some runs. Derek Brown in the middle is a little bit of a difficult guy to block. He's kind of like what you dealt last week with Dexter Lawrence. So if the Cowboys can secure those guys, I feel like they can run the ball. The Panthers are giving up about 4.3 a carry. If you believe those metrics, that puts them about 24th in the league. And they're 9th in the league when it comes to facing the number of rushes they face. So teams have they know hey, we're going to run the ball, and they're not going to be able to stop you all that well. So I anticipate that's kind of what, let's say, the zone coverage, and then also the Panthers maybe trying to commit a little bit more to playing the run. But the Cowboys haven't shown that they can really, really, really run the ball. And maybe the Panthers are like, well, they're probably more concerned about their ability to defend the pass in this game. And they're going to make, I totally agree about their ability to, what they want to do is make you drive the football. We were talking with their play-by-play guy this just a little bit ago, and that's where they want to do what they want to try and make the Cowboys, because the Cowboys have had some problems when it's come to having to just sustain a drive. Sometimes they get penalties. Sometimes they bog down in the red zone. Goal-to-go situations haven't always been clean. they've eliminated the turnovers, which is good, but can you consistently march this thing 12, 14 plays without making a mistake? That's got to be Carolina's hope today.
Yeah, and the Cowboys offense has become so much more explosive over the last month or so since the bye week, pushing the ball down the field,
Right.
CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, that connection. But today should be a good opportunity to get the rushing attack going even more as we go inside the numbers, brought to you by Papa John's, the official pizza, the Dallas Cowboys. Better ingredients, better pizza. It is Papa John's. And the Panthers are giving up over 130 yards per game on the ground. And Dallas rushed for 168 yards versus the Giants last week. And the other thing I saw is the Panthers are first in the league in missed tackles
Yes.
defensively.
Yep.
So good opportunity for Pollard, make a guy miss, Dowdle, make a guy miss, Yak for guys like CeeDee Lamb, Ferguson. You just saw Cooks and Gallup have a nice game. So it'll be fun to see how this Cowboys offense attacks Carolina today in Uptown Charlotte. Let's get you out there. Coming up next here, the Coach's Corner. Brad Sham, voice of the Cowboys, standing by with Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy. You're listening to the Dallas Cowboys Radio Network.
Every moment, every touchdown, every yard is a reason to celebrate. If anyone knows that, Ciroc does. From the tailgate to the touchdown, Ciroc Ultra Premium Vodka makes game day a smooth one. And with flavors that never fumble, man, this game day is an instant win. This is Ciroc, made from fine French grapes, made for football. Get Ciroc and Ciroc Vodka Spritz during the next Cowboys game. Please drink responsibly. Ciroc Vodka, 40% alcohol by volume, imported from France by Diageo, New York, New York.
Academy Sports and Outdoors has you covered with everything you need to have fun out there. From the best sports brands like Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour, to all your essentials for backyard cooking and the best gear for hunting, fishing, and enjoying the outdoors, Academy has it all. Order online at academy.com or on the Academy app and pick up in-store or get free shipping on most orders. Make shopping easy with Academy Sports and Outdoors. Free shipping applies to most orders over $25. Online sign-in required.
Cowboys football and Miller Lite. What a pairing. Can cracks at kickoff. Tailgates going way past postgame. Sunday night overtimes followed by Monday morning swagger. Brisket in the smoker. Miller Lite in the cooler. America's team playing America's greatest sport. Miller Lite, the only beer of the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas Cowboys football tastes like Miller time. Celebrate responsibly. 2023 Miller Brewing Company, Fort Worth, Texas.
Cowboys Nation is big because everything's bigger in Texas. And Reliant has the energy to power it all.
Johnson out on the turf in Carolina chopping it up with Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. How about that? We're just a few minutes away from the owner's box with Jerry Jones, but right now from a former Cowboy head coach to the current one, we go live to Uptown Charlotte, Bank of America Stadium for today's Coach's Corner. Voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham, standing by with Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy.
Beautiful day in Charlotte, and it's only the second noon Central Time home game for Mike McCarthy, but you'll be home fairly early, so it's not quite a home game, but it's close, isn't it?
Well, definitely, especially with Thanksgiving right around the corner. So no, we love these early games. Just get up and get going. The locker room's been very active all morning, so I feel like our guys are ready to go.
I think I want to ask you. I wasn't going to ask you this first, but I think I will. Your preparation for this game, as well as how you use the players today, but especially I'm thinking about the preparation. How much of the short week factors into what you've done this past week?
I don't think you're going to approach it that way. I think you really do that during the course of the week of who you think is going to be available. We got to jump out here, play this game to win. Now, God willing, if we get in a situation late in the game, then we'll talk about it. But we got to come out here guns a blazing, and that's our approach.
All right, let's talk about one of your favorite subjects, quarterbacks. I usually leave it to the other media to talk to you about Dak, but he's playing pretty good. He's playing noticeably well. What's kicked in? What's flipped a switch?
I just think it's we're hitting our stride as an offense, and I just think like anything, you have to have that from the quarterback position, and Dak's hit his groove. Just being healthy with the run in the pass. Situational, we're where we want to be this past month, but we need to keep building off this. So that's our approach coming into the game, and I think this is clearly a different challenge this week than last week, because last week we saw so much man, and they challenged us with man, and we're anticipating more of a zone shell type game today.
Let's talk about their quarterback. When first you see the first pick in the draft, how did you see him? You probably didn't spend a lot of time on him, but I'm sure you looked at him. How did you see him in school, and what little bit you've seen of him? What do you think?
Yeah, very impressed. I'm very impressed with the young man. Had a chance, after his junior year at the Alabama Pro Day to spend some time with him. You can see why. The wiring and how how he's put together, and just the way he plays the game. He plays the position the right way, and very instinctive ball placement, has touch, and but the thing that really jumped out is his ability to anticipate and make throws. So I just think it's like anything. He's in year one. So but we got to keep him in the pocket and make him play from the pocket today.
I may have said this before. Bill Parcells was very fond of saying, when asked about another situation, I'm just trying to keep my own house from burning down. Yep. So, but you're familiar, because you've lived it, with what Frank Reich is going through in terms of taking the play calling back and giving it away and taking it back. What's that do to a team's preparation?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we just have to be prepared for everything based off of what they see. I mean, it's just tough when you go through. Your first year is always a challenge, but when you get into a high injury situation, is what they're into. Currently, it's more of a challenge. So with that, we have to take more of a expect the unexpected approach. Kind of the approach you have when you're coming out of training camp, and just everything's on the table. So, and that's really what our preparation, the extra time that we spent this week was all about.
And last one, I think you touched on this, but you can elaborate a little bit. I was talking to Stephon Gilmore this week. Got some experience, obviously, and he said something I found very interesting, which was that on the special teams that he's been on, and he's been in 2 Super Bowls, I guess, that this was about the time that those teams really started to come together. People tend to think you should, and you talk about September football all the time, but folks kind of think that you should come out of the chute ready to go and just carry it on. So is this about the time, what you mentioned earlier with the offense, that you're kind of wanting to see and beginning to see things happen?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, our production is a pretty good indicator of it, but I think the most important thing is, it starts up front. We're getting consecutive starts with our 5 offensive linemen, and that's a huge foundation for everything we want to do, because, it's just like anything. The run blocking is the key, in a run game of giving the running backs clean looks, and it's also the protection part has probably been the biggest change for our offensive guys, and the protection unit I felt last week really rose up in to the challenge of the Giants defense, and we're going to have another challenge this week with a ton of simulated blitz, tremendous amount of line movement. So that continuity and consistency just gives us a chance to really expand and be more efficient and aggressive in the perimeter.
Have fun. Thanks for the time.
All right, thank you, Brad.
Fellas, that's Coach McCarthy. Back to you.
Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Coach. As we are just over 40 minutes to kick off Cowboys and Panthers, Bryan Broaddus, you, sir, have a little zebra update for us. What do we got with these referees today?
Yeah, you're going to get Clay Martin today and his crew. It's the Clay's crew. They've worked 8 games. This will be the 9th game that they've worked. He is there as a crew. They call the least amount of flags of any of the other officials through this point of the season right now. So, yeah, this is probably one of those guys you would probably rather have when it's one of those games where you're playing against, say, if you're playing the 49ers, the Eagles, or somebody like that.
Yeah, you don't want to burn a good crew.
You don't want to burn a good crew.
They'll
let you play. But what you need to know about Clay Martin's crew, 23 offensive holding penalties. That's their big one that they have. Defensive holding is 6. Unnecessary roughness is 6. So watch the chippy play. If there's anything, any of those going after somebody after a play, maybe a safety with Wilson. We've seen that before. Or one of these guys going, taking a run at a tight end or a receiver coming across the middle.
Neville Gallimore laying on his back.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing for them. Another one is the illegal shift. And I say shift there.
Yeah, there's an F in there.
Yeah, so you got to watch that where all of a sudden, you get 2 guys moving at once. But offensive pass interference and defensive pass interference are the same, 3 each. So really not heavy when it comes to the offense or defensive pass interference. Probably let these guys play a little bit down the field in this game today. But you do have to be wary of the offensive holding, number 23 on that.
Okay. All right. Fantastic. Very good. Cowboys, Panthers. We are 40 minutes to kick off, and I believe we have a pretty special owner's box. It's always special with Jerry Jones, but might we hear from Jimmy Johnson? What's Jerry got cooking? Dallas Cowboys football will continue in a moment.
Ho, ho, ho. Visiting from the North Pole, Santa has touched down at his Dallas Cowboys cottage at the Star in Frisco. Get a frame-worthy family holiday photo with Santa at the Star presented by Monument Realty. Santa Claus will be available for photos and Christmas gift requests at his Cowboys-themed cottage in the Star District all the way up through Christmas Eve. Photo packages include a print and an exclusive Cowboys gift for each child. Book your visit now at thestardistrict.com/Santa.
You can trust your car to the place with the Star. With tech running your engine, enjoy your hobbies near and far. Fill your car with all your friends and love the time you spend. So trust your car to the Texaco Star.
When you fill up with Texaco with TechRun, you get unbeatable mileage to help fuel what you love to do. Download the Texaco app to find a station near you.
People take their chili seriously. At Whataburger, we also put chili on a pedestal made of 100% fresh beef. The Whataburger Chili Cheeseburger, made to order with our own chili on 2 all-beef patties, melty cheese, onions, mustard, and crunchy corn chips. This is chili elevated to burger height. The Chili Cheeseburger is back for a limited time. Whataburger, just like you like it.
Football fans, do you ever have trouble hearing the game? Or just hearing in general? Hearing aid company Signia is partnering with the Dallas Cowboys to help raise hearing health awareness so everyone can hear their best for the game.
Broaddus.
All right, we're 35 minutes to kick off Cowboys and Panthers. Let's go into the owner's box at Bank of America Stadium. Live in Uptown Charlotte, Cowboys sideline reporter Christy Scales standing by with Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson. Christy, take it away.
It's very special, this owner's box, to have Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson together. I'll ask you both the same question, and that is Dak playing the best football of his career that you've seen so far?
Well, Dak and Jimmy had a little visit right before we came out here. Did he tell you what you wanted to hear?
Oh, yeah. I tell you, Dak is such a leader for this football team, and we've been saying, Terry Bradshaw and I watch every single week, and Terry watches these quarterbacks. He loves these quarterbacks. He loves Dak. He said, hey, that's the kind of guy, that I believe in, and I think this team believes in him.
And CeeDee Lamb, the fact that after setting an NFL record, his gloves and his towel are in the Pro Football Hall of Fame in Canton on display this week. I knew you had high hopes, Jerry, as a first-round pick that he'd have a big career, but he hadn't even retired yet, and he's in Canton.
Well, let me say this. We hope they save some more room for his towel as the ensuing weeks go along there. But I was just thinking about our last question. I was talking to Jimmy over here a minute ago. And I was asking him, when he looks at the mental aspect of being a quarterback in the NFL, what does he think is the most important thing about that mental aspect? And it was so interesting. And you can imagine at the very top was the decision, the ability to make the decision.
Yeah, decision maker and accuracy and, hey, leadership. I mean, that's the thing I love, and Dak's got it.
And the fact that whoever is the quarterback of America's team and so in the spotlight, and you saw Troy go through all that, is it more difficult to be in the spotlight as a Dallas Cowboy quarterback?
Well, not only the Dallas Cowboys quarterback, but the Dallas Cowboys football team and players. Everybody's under a microscope. But that's what Jerry loves. That's what Dallas loves.
He called me before the draft, and he was out there with him, and all he could talk about was his mental. Well, wait a minute. It was something about the way he could throw that football and the zip on that football at that particular time.
He's accurate.
We can win with this guy.
And we did.
Babe Laufenberg is still mad that you started the rookie Aikman in front of him in 89.
Well, I think Babe understood.
Thank you so much. A real treat to have you both on. That's Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson in the owner's box here at Bank of America Field in Charlotte as we continue counting down to kickoff. Jerry and Jimmy are on their way for a very special announcement that will be made in just a few minutes that will make Cowboys history. They are on their way for that announcement. It'll be made in just a few. We'll continue counting down to Panthers, Cowboys kick and rejoin Rick and Bryan.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, my goodness, that was a borderline historical owner's box there, brought to you by Papa John's. Better ingredients, better pizza. It is Papa John's. It's always cool hearing and seeing Jerry and Jimmy together. You just heard Christy tease an announcement coming out. It looks like with Jerry Jones will be doing a press conference shortly before kickoff. So we might be able to throw live to that here in a few minutes. But Jimmy Johnson in the building at Carolina, hanging out with Jerry. Special announcements. This is pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I think what's really interesting is what he's talking about with Dak. And here's a guy that really, with Jimmy Johnson, he was so much about his players, and he stressed even with Dak the leadership aspects of Dak. That's something we've all just grown so accustomed to, the leadership that the things that he's had to deal with, the ups and downs, the things that playing under the microscope the way he has. He's been outstanding the last several weeks. When you start to talk about, you can recognize the third down passing, you recognize the completion percentage, the explosive plays. Something clearly clicked for him, CD, the offensive staff. They, after that San Francisco game, they look like a much different team offensively. You've struggled, not you struggle, but there's been some opponents that haven't been nearly as good. And you're going to play another one today that's not as good. But, you can't take that away from them and what they've been able to do offensively. And Jimmy surely pointed that out with Jerry there.
Yeah. Dak and this offense, this passing attack, they've been on quite the tear. And we'll see if that can continue as we get to know the enemy here. Brought to you by Arrow Exterminators, the official pest control provider of the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, you would think with their 2 starting corners going to be out there in Carolina today, J.C. Horn and C.J. Henderson, you would have a good opportunity to pass the ball on them. But I did note, and I remember in your preview talking about the zone coverage that this Panthers team.
And Mike McCarthy even brought it up.
Yeah.
You know, I just, when you watch Carolina play, and especially against quality receivers, they are terrified of giving up the big play. And Dak and them are going to have to operate against a very, very heavy zone team today.
Yep.
That was clear going into this game. I'm glad that Mike McCarthy, I'm glad that Brad Sham asked him the question, you know, about that, which led to Mike, you know, kind of confirming what we believe going into the game was going to happen.
Yeah, he was Mike McCarthy on today's Coach's Corner that you can hear every pregame show shortly before kickoff. Brad Sham was asking him about the similarities and differences between this Panthers team versus last week's Giants team, and he says different challenge this week because last week we saw so much man coverage versus the Giants, but we're anticipating a lot more zone shell type game today versus the Panthers. So maybe that limits some of the chunk plays in the passing game with CeeDee Lamb and company, maybe. But also, hopefully, it opens up things from a rushing attack standpoint.
Well, if you play shell coverage, what they're talking about is the cover 2 look. So with 2 safeties back trying to help these corners, then that's one less guy in the box.
All right, let's go ahead and get you to the booth with Brad Sham, voice of the Cowboys. We continue to inch closer and closer to kickoff. Cowboys and Panthers, you're listening to Dallas Cowboys Radio Network.
Fall is here, and that means
Reporter, brought to you by Pollock Roa, proud supplier of the Dallas Cowboys. We go live to Uptown Charlotte, Bank of America Stadium. Christy, I mean, my goodness, you were just hanging out with Jerry and Jimmy. That must have been pretty cool.
It's very cool, and something special, an announcement coming up in just a couple minutes. That's going to be very, very cool. But as Jimmy and Jerry were saying in our Owner's Box interview, Dak Prescott playing so well, but talking with some of the different folks on the sideline, we think this will be a game where they really break out with that run game. Tony Pollard and then Rico Dowdle, who was questionable coming into the game, added to the injury list late in the week with a sore ankle. Rico Dowdle will play, but because they have to have some help with an injury-depleted Carolina secondary and have safeties kind of have to help double, that could open up the box and be some extra space in there for Pollard and Dowdle, and the offensive line for the Cowboys playing for the third consecutive week with its starting five. This could be the game, guys, where they really get the run game going.
Christy, any idea on the mix on that, or is it just as the game wears on, or is it clearly going to be Pollard over Dowdle, or is there going to be a mix there?
No. It's my understanding that there's any kind of pitch count on Dowdle with that ankle. If he can play, he can play. But it's still going to be Pollard who's the lead back with Rico Dowdle mixing in. Now, if it's sort of like it is in some of these other one-sided games against teams that have only won one game or just a couple this year, we know that in the fourth quarter we've seen a lot of Hunter Lipke. So with Deuce Vaughn being inactive today, coach's decision, that means that Lipke would be the third back.
There's no doubt that winning the football game is priority number one, but being able to put it on these guys early and often and rest as many dudes as you can before the quick turnaround Thursday game, I imagine would be a priority in the fourth quarter if they had the opportunity.
Absolutely. This is one of these games, just like last week against a Giants team that you had beaten 40-0 in week one. Take care of business. No self-inflicted wounds. You avoid the turnovers, and you avoid the self-inflicted wounds in terms of penalties. That was one of the emphasis, the points last week of emphasis, is none of these pre-snap penalties, none of these things that can put you in a longer down and distance. The Cowboys have been great at maintaining control of the ball, having long scoring drives, and just smothering the other team. And so that's obviously the priority today against a Carolina team that has just one win. Something else that's going to be fun today, the Carolina punter, Johnny Hecker. Do you remember when he was with Bones Fossil and they were with the Rams? Yeah. And Johnny Hecker did a lot of fun plays, throwing the ball.
Yep.
And so they've only had, he's only completed one pass this year, Johnny Hecker, the punter. But talking with Cowboys special teams, they think that Hecker and Carolina Panthers may have something up their sleeves for Hecker's old special teams coordinator. And besides, with a 1-8 record, as the guys down here point out, what in the heck do they have to lose?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I hear Frank Reich's on the hottest of seats right now. Christy, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the game.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Brian.
There she goes, Cowboys sideline reporter Christy Scales. And now we go up into the booth with the voice of the Cowboys, Brad Sham, brought to you by the WinStar World Casino and Resort, the casino of the Dallas Cowboys. Brad, we're seeing Jerry and Jimmy together. Do you get all warm and fuzzy inside? I do when I see those fellas together hanging out.
That's not the kind of thing that makes me warm and fuzzy inside, but I think Cowboy fans are going to be very, very happy shortly. I'm glad that they, were able to put aside whatever it was that comes between them, and I'm glad that Jimmy will get an honor that a lot of people have been clamoring for a long time, and so good. Now we can talk about getting Cornell Green and people who really deserve it to get. Not that Jimmy doesn't, but
Harvey Martin would be my vote. I'd have a Harvey Martin vote.
Yeah, we should have that conversation sometime. I have Cornell Green, I have Everson Walls, I have Ed Jones. I think Harvey and Charlie Waters are on the list. And can we get Jason Witten in before he goes in the Hall of Fame?
There you go.
I wouldn't mind that. Now, looking at this Panthers team here, Brad, have you ever seen a play caller give up the play calling duties and then less than a month later say, never mind, I'd like to have that back?
I probably, but I don't remember when. But it's really kind of unfair to Bryce Young, I think. What he's got around him is difficult. I'm not sure that this will be playing the Giants 2 weeks in a row because I think their defense is capable of causing you some discomfort. But the Panthers offensively are challenged. I mean, the interior of their line, it's really not very good. And, poor Bryce, he's a slight man now. Everybody saw him in Alabama, really smart, really can throw it, but there's not a lot of him. And so I was told by one scout in the league, this is a scout who never played in the NFL, but this scout was giving me a rundown, and he said, I'm not sure their center could block me. And now this guy was athletic, but we'll be interested to see how many times Micah Parsons lines up over the nose.
I want to say this, though, Brad. I appreciate you asking the question of the coach, and he talked about how much zone defense they might face today. And it seems that Dak is capable zoner, man. It doesn't matter. Line up, and he's going to find ways to make plays.
Yeah, I mean, you could tell us better than I could, Bryan, but I don't know why that would make a lot of difference. It might make a difference in the length of the play. It might make a difference in the kind of throw. But in terms of being open, if he's able to see what's going on and he's got receivers, there's soft spots in every zone.
Right.
So you know what? If they want to give you 8 yards, then just take the 8 yards and just 8 yards your way down the field. The other thing that'll be interesting will be to see if they can, in fact, get a running game going. And I think that would be good for everyone's confidence.
No question about it. I mean, a little bit more Dowdle. I know he's banged up today, but after what we saw last week.
I asked McCarthy not on the air because he wouldn't answer it on the air because that's how he is. But I said, will you be managing Dowdle? And he said, no, he's up. He's going to play. He said it'll be a lot of Pollard, and then we'll get to Rico.
Okay, Brad, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We got to throw things to Fox right now. Here is Jerry and Jimmy, a little presser.
Let's go.
Such a time in our lives. And Jimmy, they talk about the Ring of Honor. We got together really because of football. Right. But we got together with the Cowboys because of my appreciation for you. By the way, and through football, but still my appreciation for you. There's never been any question for what you need to be in the Dallas Cowboys Ring of Honor.
Well, thank you, Jerry.
Along the way, we never disagreed on anything about football. We didn't disagree about anything at all. I remember Bill Walsh got on television and said those two might have gone careless a little with their relationship. A little careless. Yeah. A little lesson for all of us there. But I will say this, it was magical the time we had together. And I want you to know something. On December the 30th of 1923, you're going in the Dallas Cowboy Ring of Honor. I hope it's 2023. What did I say? 2023. Well, it is 2023. We want to get this real clear. Okay, 3 weeks from now. 4 weeks from now.
Let me just say this. A lot of people have talked about the tension between us. When we went to the Cowboys, we were both working around the clock, and we talked every single day. We communicated back and forth, and Jerry and I talked about this just not too long ago. We never disagreed on anything.
No, and it was tight, boy. Listen, we were losing $1 million a month in cash flow. And I'd had to buy part of the Cowboys from the FDIC. They'd been foreclosed on.
Yeah.
It was tight. And you really didn't know for sure how this thing was going to turn out. And frankly, I hadn't, as a matter of fact, when you signed your contract, it was signed by the Cowboys.
Right.
And I reached over and I said, Jimmy, that is not worth the paper it's written on. I don't think the Cowboys can pay. So I signed the contract for it at that particular time.
Right.
Because I wanted you there. By the way, that was several weeks, maybe months after he left Miami to come. That's the kind of relationship.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long time coming, but the wait is over. It's official. Jimmy Johnson will be inducted into the Cowboys Ring of Honor. That is now official, according to Jerry Jones. Very, very special. The King is in on December 30th, 2023. Congratulations, Jimmy Johnson.
Congratulations. That was a team that we used to compete at quite a bit at Green Bay. Well built. The coaching staff was outstanding. Players were outstanding. Front office, everything about it. What a great partnership between those two. And glad to finally see that Jimmy Johnson gets his due. Already a Hall of Fame coach. Ring of Honor will mean an awful lot to him.
Absolutely fantastic. Okay, Cowboy victory today. I got 31-13 Cowboy victory.
Yeah, I went 26-13 Cowboys on all my platforms.
All right, a historic day here on the official pregame show of America's team. Jimmy Johnson to the Ring of Honor. Brad, Babe, Christy got you the rest of the way. Dallas Cowboys football will continue in a moment.
Black Rifle Coffee.